So, you know, people get traffic tickets. I got one recently, as I've been telling you guys, and it costs a ton of money, including traffic court. I just paid it. Normal speeding ticket, not outrageous, not going over 90 miles, nothing. $424. That's devastating. Now, luckily, I had the money to pay it. I can see how a lot of people wouldn't have $424 lying around extra, right? So I know what the conservatives always say, oh, well, then don't speed, haha. Really? None of you have gone over the speed limit at all in your entire lives? I don't believe that for a second. I believe every single person watching this has gone over the speed limit, and oftentimes significantly so. So what happens when you do? Well, there's a private corporation ready to screw you. So let's talk about why. Let's take the example of Gina Ray that the New York Times wrote about recently. She lives in Alabama, and she got a speeding ticket, normal so far, and it's $179. You know, it's the cost of living in LA is higher, so I can see how Gina's is lower at $179, but that's still a lot of money. And so she didn't have it. She was 28 years old. But it's not even that. She says that the ticket had written out the court date wrong, and that's why she initially didn't pay. Okay? So what happens next? Well, they start piling on the charges. And at some point, they turn it over to a private corporation, who then says, well, since I got to collect my fees and then give the original fees to the government, well, I got to pile on even more fees for you. So we go from $179 for Gina Ray to, in the end, $3,170, because Judicial Correction Services Incorporated and companies like them decide, hey, you know what? You got to pay us on top of what you normally owe. And then since she can't pay that, she couldn't pay the original amount, let alone $3,170, she goes to jail. She goes to jail for 40 days. Now, what the hell is a private corporation doing sending citizens to jail? I thought we didn't have debtors' prisons anymore. No, but if it's a government fine, then you can go to prison, even if it's a misdemeanor. But what the great trick is, the government sells their fines off to a for-profit probation company. They then turn around and say, hey, government, this woman owes us money. Put her ass in jail. If she owes a private corporation money, she's going to jail. And the government says, oh, well, you initially owed us $179, so there you go, off you go. Now you're over $3,000. Well, how the hell are you going to pay that? Well, a lot of people can't. And the New York Times, terrific article. It has case after case. Here, let me give you a couple others. You saw there Gina Ray speeding, 3,000, 40 days. How about Richard Garrett? Normal traffic ticket? His fines have now gone up to $10,000. Oh, come on, man. Who's got $10,000? And apparently Richard doesn't. He's a former veteran, by the way. I'm sorry, he's a veteran formerly in the Iraq War. Who cares? You served your country and you didn't pay some sort of private probation company enough money? 24 months in prison. You had a traffic ticket. Oh, you had it coming. You shouldn't have sped. Ha ha. 24 months in prison. He's never going to pay that bill. And especially because if you keep putting him in jail, how the hell is he going to pay it? And then he's got a record. And then who's going to hire him? So then you can keep putting him back in jail and taking more money from him and more money from him and more money from him and keep putting him back in prison. This is just three of hundreds, thousands of examples across the country. Let me show you the third one. Hills McGee, another veteran. Public drunkenness. Who hasn't done that, right? Okay, look, I had trouble with public drunkenness. I remember cops gave me hell for it. $270 was the original ticket. Now the fine is $700. He can't pay it yet because he's another veteran struggling to get a job. Yeah, it's okay. Imprisoned. They're all in jail. What the hell's going on in this country? All right, well, so why are the courts doing this? Now, we know why the private corporations are doing it. They're making money off of it, right? So why is the government doing it? Well, first of all, these guys say, don't worry. We can collect better for you guys, okay? We'll be more efficient in how we collect these fines. By crushing these people and destroying their lives, we'll be more efficient in collecting your original $179 fine. Oh, great. So what do they use it for? Well, government has its own thing. Say, hey, you know what? They use some of it for police training, some of it from crime laboratories. Some of this could be helpful. Victim assistance program. Sounds lovely, right? The court's computer system. Okay, that's pretty good. So they say, look, since we have these needs and we need money for that, well, okay, it justifies everything. But I love the last one. They also, the court fees go to retirement funds for court officials. Oh, is that right? Now that might give you an interesting incentive to make sure that you hand it off to a private corporation who's a little bit more efficient in getting that funding, even if they're absolutely ruthless and gut your fellow citizens to do it. Who cares? In fact, the Chief Marketing Officer for Judicial Correction Services says, "We hear a lot of, 'I can't pay the fee.' It's not our job to figure that out." Well, that's lovely, Kevin. We appreciate that sentiment. But it gives you a sense of where their head's at. Now, later on, he also says, "Look, we don't want them going to prison. If they do, they can't pay us. We'd rather that they didn't go to prison." Well, Kevin, there'd be an easy way of making sure they didn't go to prison. Don't put them in prison, okay? And that's BS anyway, because one, they use that as a threat to get a lot more money out on an individual basis. And on a macro basis, they say to everybody, "Hey, you see what we did to McGee? You see what we did to Gina Ray? You better pay up." But wait a minute, the original thing was $200. Now you're asking for $3,000. Oh, shut up and pay. Otherwise you go to prison and we're going to ruin your life. We got to stop handing over critical governmental tasks to private corporations. We can't have them imprison our fellow citizens because they didn't pay their outrageous, ridiculous fees. And, you know, not only are they doing it all across the country, of course, they're doing it even more so in red states. This is in Alabama, a lot of these examples. Georgia, dozens of companies sending thousands of people to jail just to make an extra buck. Yeah, you keep voting for those politicians who then, by the way, also get greased by companies like this and also by the for-profit prisons who also make money off of imprisoning you. And then, gee, I wonder why we have the highest incarceration rate in the world. I wonder why we have 5% of the world's population and 25% of its prisoners. Because people make money off of putting you in prison. We got to take our government back so that they can't do that to us. The government in a democracy is supposed to be us. And we don't agree to that. Do you guys want Gina Ray in prison? No right person thinks, oh, Gina Ray didn't pay the original $179. Put her in prison for 40 days, let alone that veteran in prison for 24 months. But we're not run by the citizens. We're not run by a democracy. Our government has been wholly bought by these private corporations. That's who we're run by. We've got to have a revolt against that. I'm not talking about a violent revolt. I'm talking about a legal, political, absolute revolution. I'm tired of the corporations running our lives. I'm tired of them sending my fellow citizens. It didn't happen to me. But damn it, I know people like Gina Ray. Don't you know them? And you know, let them keep going to prison because somebody else wanted to make an extra buck and they bought our cheap politicians to do it because we let them do it because they can just give donations out and they say, oh, no, that's not bribery. That's not bribery. He doesn't have to do what I tell him. Of course, he won't get reelected if he doesn't keep getting campaign contributions from for-profit corporations. But hey, that's the system we have. #1 in the world. No, we used to be #1 in the world. This system is destroying this country. Because since the mid-1970s, since the Supreme Court said corporations are human beings, they have speech rights, they can spend unlimited money buying our government, we have gone to a system that does not work for the citizens. It works for the corporations, the multinational corporations that are sucking us dry. It's time to fight those machines and put an end to this and regain our democracy. Young Turks.